Hello everybody, welcome back to Time Attack. This time we're kicking off practice with our 3 sessions. Session 1 is for Pocket Rocket Clubman, Clubman Plus, and Classic and Retro. Session 2 is our club classes, and Session 3 is our pro classes. Michael Burch there in the Honda Civic of Tegoa Racing, coming through the hairpin now island corner. There we go, just really moving that car around. We have seen that he has really been on the attack throughout warm-up, which really there is absolutely no need for. But clearly there is no holding Michael Burch back. Pocket Rocket class then, one of the most, you can see it, 3-wheeling there. Up on 3 wheels is that little Honda Civic EK. From what I understand, it did start life as a 1.4, so it could even be a Honda Civic EJ. But all week, very fast Time Attack machine. There you can see going around the outside of Eden Young's machine. These 2 Pocket Rockets side by side. Eden Young with his headlights on, under no obligation to yield whatsoever. Michael Burch then making his way around. Eden Young with a 1.0-liter engine, supercharged albeit, making around 120 horsepower on a good day, I believe. So of course, not posing too much of a challenge to the charging Michael Burch in that Honda Civic. Both of them with their headlights glowing in the wind, just to signal to everybody around them they are on a hot lap, and they are not to be held up by anyone on a slow lap. Like you can see, just ahead of Michael Burch is Antonio Giovinazzo in the Alfa Romeo 155 in the Classic and Retro class, I believe. I can see in the distance Michael Burch closing in fast as we come down Lakeside. There we go, he is just making that move around the outside. Antonio Giovinazzo yields. Michael Burch there we go, it's squirming around, gets around the outside of the Mini Cooper as well. The MMT performance machine of Clive Hopwell, the Mini R58 Cooper S. And just for a little while, here we go into Hislops then, again up on 3 wheels, and now round into Knickerbrook he goes. Now onto the long, fast and scary section where you've got to try to keep your right foot planted and string this together and not end up in the trees. Here goes Michael Burch then. Here you can just see that car really moving around over these bumps. That short wheelbase little Honda Civic carrying a lot of pace through there, moving around like nobody's business. Michael Burch managing to keep everything together. This is the only Tegoa Racing car, machine here today, with the Honda NSX of Luke Sandziakowski having been sidelined for today after engine troubles. And then here we go, Michael Burch sets the fastest lap so far with 139.6. There we go, fastest in sectors 1 and 3 of all, personal best in sector 2. Andrew Kime in the Citroen Saxo, the only person faster in Sector 2 than Michael Burch here. Bearing in mind, this is only practice. There are no points to be awarded. Even if you set a lap record right now, it's not going to stand. This is not an officially timed or classified session. Nonetheless, Michael Burch then putting on a bit of a dress rehearsal for when it does count, because he is really flying right now. You can just see how much that car is being hustled around over these bumps. Oulton Park, as we discussed earlier today, I think it's quite an intimidating circuit, especially around that second half, coming through Knickerbrook Clay Hill and into Druids. You've just got to keep your foot on the floor and just try to string that together, and it's just like a roller coaster. Or that other thing where you're on a sled and it goes down on the ice. Toboggan, maybe, something like that. It's a really scary ride coming through Oulton Park, but rewarding when you manage to string it all together. Let's have a look at the number 34 machine then. This is the car of Andrew Hawes, the Tarox Mini Challenge 210. Named as such because there are only 210 of these cars ever made. Andrew Hawes then entering his one into Time Attack, sponsored by Tarox Brakes and built by himself at Garage 34. Andrew Hawes then doing a lot of the spannering on that car himself and embodying that DIY spirit that we love so much here at Time Attack. There we go, into Island he goes then. Angry little eyelids on that car. You can see that angry little downturned, slightly non-PG-13 looking exhaust. It's like one of those little Cupid statues. There you go, pointing down at the ground just to absorb some of that noise. So the ground absorbs that noise from the exhaust. Pointing it downwards towards the ground is one of those classic tricks. Just to try to quieten down your exhaust without needing to put silencers on it and stifling your power. Let's have a look at the number 955 car then. Not on my entry list, but I believe that, I think I know who that is. Let's just have a look at our Run What You Brung entry list. That is indeed not who I thought it was. This is a different Renault Clio. This is the Renault Clio of Thomas Lambert. The Renault Clio here, the 995 car, presumably in Pocket Rocket. Let's have a look at the timing screen. Yep. Here we go, Michael Hume. There we go. Let's just amend my entry list. I've got him down as number 130. He is in fact 995. There we go. Okay. So there we go. The pink little one Clio 182. One of, in my opinion, my non-qualified opinion, one of the best front-wheel drive track machines ever built. I had one for a little while. I miss it dearly. Absolutely incredible chassis. Getting expensive now. But you know, I think people are really waking up to, you have a few cars that used to be cheap. You know, you have your MX-5, you have your MR2, you have your Renault Sport Clio. You have these little manual drivers-oriented cars, which people have now finally realized are actually phenomenal, and they are rapidly shooting up in price. But luckily, you know, we see that not putting off some drivers who are still bringing them to time attacks, they're still bringing them to sprints, they're still bringing them to track days, because really that's the bread and butter that puts those cars on the map. Another one then, the Mazda RX-8, as driven here by Tim Bedford. Pretty much a fully standard car, with the exception of the coilovers, from what I understand. Tim Bedford, who we've seen in the past driving a Pro-Class Subaru Impreza, driving it sideways everywhere with complete control. There are few people who I've seen as comfortable driving. Oh, here we go. Spoke too soon. Tim Bedford there, completely missing that braking point, having to take the escape route. Never mind, let's take a look at the Classic and Retro class then. Here we have Stuart Tranter in the 220 Rover, 220 Tomcat, Old Boy Racing. Classic and Retro making a return for this year, for this round, where we've got enough of these old school cars to warrant making a whole class for these bad boys. We've got Antonio Giovinazzo in the Alfa Romeo 155, Mark Spence in the Mazda RX-7, the FB chassis, SAFB, the Series 1 RX-7. Then we've got Thomas Mosley in the Rover Mini, Stuart Tranter in this Rover 220 Tomcat. Let's have a look at Michael Burch then. Michael Burch still remains on top of the timing screen, now ahead, leading Chris Butcher in the Lexus ISF, and then just behind them is the number 170 machine, Owen Hillman, the Pro Alloys Mini Cooper S, third fastest overall, second fastest in Pocket Rocket. There goes Michael Burch, then his headlights on again. You can just see it moving around on those bumps. Oulton Park, such a tricky circuit to string together. You look at the map and actually it kind of looks straightforward. What makes it a real challenge are all the little bumps and jumps and these semi-corners that you think are straight lines but are actually corners, but you can straight line them. Oulton Park is just such a unique challenge. There you go, bouncing around up in three wheels goes Michael Burch in the number 300 Tegewa Motorsport Honda Civic, and he is now coming up to another Honda-powered machine, which you may not believe at first glance. This is the Team Confusion Ford Fusion. This one is Honda-powered, and I believe we have Susie in the pit lane. What have you got for us, Susie?
Hi, so I'm down here in the pits with Ben Robinson. So Ben, how's the day going so far for you?
Yeah, it's going quite well, to be fair. The car's performing really well. Had a ever so slight calibration that we're going to do between third and fourth gear, just to improve it, to be fair. For me though, I've not been here for 2 years and I've managed 2 hot laps. And I was kind of beating myself up a little bit about it because I'm like 1.3 seconds off where I want to be. And then the guys, obviously, I mean, they bring me back up and they're like, look, you've only done 2 laps in 2 years here. It's going to come back. It's going to come back. And yeah, I'm hopeful again. Confidence is back up and hopefully we can get there.
How are you coping with the heat out on track? Because it's really warm out here today.
Yeah, it definitely is warm. We are seeing that actually with our intake temperatures. So ideally, we want them to be around about the 40 degrees sort of mark. But what I'm finding is at the end of a hot lap, I'm up at 60. So whereas before, I could go out and do 3 hot laps, 1 cool down, 3 hot laps, 1 cool down. It's only 1 hot, 1 cool, 1 hot, 1 cool. So it does limit the number of hot laps we can do. So we need to try and find the space, which is what it's all about. And then just make it count, really.
But no problem getting the tyres up to temperature, at least today.
Believe it or not, actually, we did struggle a little bit with the front temperatures. Okay. So we're adjusting the pressures on them because the ideal temperature window is about 60 degrees, and we were down at 48 to 52 on the front. So we just want to lift those temperatures up a little bit, and then hopefully that will give me the front end turning, a bit more confidence, especially out the hairpin or into the hairpin. And then the times will start coming down as well.
Okay, brilliant. So yeah, you had a couple of great sessions last time, so you're hoping to maybe get on the podium again?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't come here not to get on the podium, to be fair. I know it sounds really big-headed, but we're here to win, right? That's why we're here. And if I don't win, I go home really upset. So we have to win.
Okay, well, good luck out there today, Ben. Thanks for talking to us.
Thank you very much.
Ben doesn't win. He goes home really upset. Not to be big-headed, but we come here to win. I love that. Ben Robinson, one of my personal heroes. Not only is his team called Yum Yum Racing, probably my favorite foodstuff, but he comes here to win. If you ain't first, you're last, as Ricky Bobby might say. Let's see how Ben gets on then in his Noble. Back for this year, Ben Robinson then, he's been around Time Attack for ages. Last year having parked up the Noble for some work, jumping instead into a Volkswagen Golf Cup car, absolutely driving the nuts and bolts off that car, and then for this year returning back to that Noble. We saw it catch fire at Cadwell Park, but that did not put our Ben off, and he was straight back for Brands Hatch, and he's back again here at Oulton Park. Let's have a look then. The checkered flag is out. That rounds up the practice session for our clubman classes, Classic and Retro and Pocket Rocket. And there you can see the the number 34 Mini Challenge 210 of Andrew Hawes, the Garage 34 built Tarek-sponsored machine. There you go, the Rover 220 Tomcat, and Tim Bedford in that Mazda RX-8. Let's have a quick look at these timing screens before they get wiped. So Andrew Kime then fastest of all. Again, I'll reiterate, this is only practice. It doesn't count for anything. It'll be tricky to read any kind of meaningful form into this. Andrew Kime, though, fastest of all with a 137.3. And of Michael Burch in that Honda Civic with a 138.8. Then we have the number 170 Owen Hillman machine, the Pro Alloys Mini Cooper S, third fastest overall, third fastest in class. So the Pocket Rocket leading the top 3 overall. Fastest class on track right now is the Pocket Rocket. Then we have Clubman Plus. Chris Butcher in the Lexus ISF is 4th fastest overall, 1st fastest in class Clubman Plus. Then we have the machine of Paul Waddington, the Team Confusion Ford Fusion. We did see what looked like a stoppage earlier on. I just clocked it earlier as we were looking down. I think one of the faster sections somewhere, maybe Hilltop, something like that. But I did see what looked like that Ford Fusion stopped out on track. But that didn't put him off. He was running 5th until that point. 4th fastest in his class, which is Pocket Rocket. Then we had Andrew Hawes in the Mini Challenge 210. There we go, 6th fastest overall and fastest in Clubman. Then we have the Mazda RX-7, the classic and retro machine of Mark Spence, the SA or FB Series 1 Mazda RX-7. Absolutely incredible machine. Then we have, let's look at 8th fastest. Then we have the machine of Michael Hume, the Renault Clio 182. Then we have the Stuart transfer machine, the Rover 220 Tomcat, 9th fastest overall, 2nd fastest in classic and retro with a 144.1. Then we have Nick Stott in the Mini R58 Cooper S Coupe, the 11th fastest overall, 6th fastest in class pocket rocket with a 146.2. Then we have another Renault Clio. This is of Stephen Wilkinson, the slightly newer shape. And there he is, used to run in Run What You Brungs. Now he has made the jump into the Time Attack Championship. So Steve Wilkinson there with the Renault Sport Clio, 12th fastest overall, 2nd fastest in class. Then we have Eden Young, lucky 13 for Eden Young, and 8th fastest in Pocket Rocket with 150.3, 13 seconds off the leader, having some technical issues there that I know about. Then 14th fastest, so then the next guys all seem to have had some kind of teething issues. So we have, after that, we have the machine of Clive Hopwell, the MMT Performance Mini R58 Cooper S, actually looking quite racy out there, you know, in terms of lines and just the attacking approach. So I do wonder why it's quite low. Perhaps there's some kind of technical. Oh, here we go. So I believe Susie won't have the answer to that, but she's got the answer to something. What have you got for us, Susie?
So I'm down here in the pit lane with Chris Cherry. So how's your day going so far?
Good, yeah. I mean, we've not really pushed it too hard. It was the first session, so just try to make sure that everything is going fine before we start really pushing it. Track temperatures are a bit of a nightmare just now. Seems like the discs have already started warping, so just try to keep it steady for the rest of the day and see how we get on.
I think you've got some race fuel going in there?
Yeah, so this will be the first time the car's ran at its full potential. So it's not ideal the way the brakes are just now, but we'd rather try and get this session over and done with, make sure that everything goes well before we really start pushing and qualifying in the final where the points matter. Yeah.
And are you suffering with overheating issues out there?
Mainly myself because I'm from Scotland, but no, to be fair...
Do you know what this is? Do we need to introduce you to the sun?
I know, yeah, but other than the power steering keeps boiling up, but we'll get around it somehow.
So basically it's you that needs the call in today?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So.
Okay, well good luck out there. Thanks for talking to us. Hope sessions go well.
No probs. Thanks. Cheers.
Thank you, guys. There we go. Actually, the heat. I feel like that's a really relevant subject because the heat's going to be a talking point today. Perhaps for some of the purpose-built machines, maybe in the GT3 sports car and prototype class, that's less of an issue. But for a lot of these road-based cars that are just modified road cars and beyond, heat management when the temperature like this could well become a theme. I know this from personal experiences. Really, when you are smashing out lap after lap after lap on a hot day, that can really put a lot of stress on your car. So managing the temperatures on your tires, managing the temperatures of your brakes, managing the temperatures of all your various fluids and so on, that can be a real challenge. And I think that's going to be something that we see. And of course, as we move through the day, that sun gets higher in the sky, the temperatures go up. This is going to become more and more of a talking point, and we might even see some drivers and some cars crack under the heat. So let's see how that goes. Good to see then that not all of the drivers feeling completely phased by it. Good to see the cars seem to be holding up pretty good so far. But especially at Oulton Park, I don't know what it is, but it often feels quite muggy. And this is, it's hot, it's muggy, and I don't know why. Maybe it's in some kind of basin But I remember this myself, having competed at Oulton Park a few times. Heat always seems to be a problem here. Maybe the scheduling, you know, being in the middle of the summer. It's just Oulton Park and heat for me go hand in hand when we're talking about time attack. In the meantime, there you can see the Team Confusion car, which we did see stopped out on track a little bit earlier on. It is still on track right now, so unable to get itself back into the pit lane. So that needs to be recovered now, meaning that we can't send our club cars out on track just yet. So on your shots then, you can see Arturus Luxurious in that white 113 Subaru Impreza. Now you perhaps can't see it on your screens, but I'm basically right above it, and I can see on this roof, it's got this carbon fiber weave, and this is a recurring theme. There you go. Maybe if you can take a look, you can see kind of the edges of that that DIY composite job there. So DIY composites, I feel like, are really going to become a thing. They already are on some of our competitors' cars. Samuel Pickering, probably the most notable one, having built basically his whole shell out of carbon fiber by this point. Arturus Luxurious there has a massive Louis Vuitton suitcase style carbon fiber weave on the roof of his Subaru Impreza. Let's have a look then. This is the Spooks car of Andy York, the Honda K20 powered Peugeot 205. Something that we haven't seen in time attack for a little while. But there we go. You can just see everyone gearing up to go out on track. So good to see this car and these faces back. Spooks Motorsport then amongst the leading performance Peugeot specialists in the UK, and actually opting for not a Peugeot engine in that 205, having gone instead for a Honda K series instead. Then here's the number 64 machine of Johnny Fletcher, Mark IV Vauxhall Astra GSI. He's been around time attack for ages. He's got a reputation, a little bit of a reputation for being quite hard on his gearboxes. I remember at one point seeing the car up on Jack's new gearbox being fitted, and the team running through all of the gears, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you could just see that, you know, they were just driving the car up there on its axle stands, just testing out this new gearbox. So Johnny Fletcher, no stranger to doing a gearbox swap. And this is the number 964 machine of Chrissy Martin, the GR Performance Subaru Impreza GC8. So one of the few classic shape Imprezas, although we're lucky enough to have two of them with us in this particular session because we have Arturus Luxurious' car as well. There we go. So the stricken Team Confusion Ford Fusion then cleared. This session can now get underway. The cars head out onto the track. Neil Greenland in that Mitsubishi Colt number 118 getting pushed for some reason. He's trying to start that. You can see he's putting it in gear, and it's just hesitating a little bit. So they're trying to push start that for some reason. There we go. It's now moving under its own power. More power, baby. Off he goes. Neil Greenland then at the front of this other queue. Kevin Thieker just behind him. Then we have the two Seat Leons of Hayden King and David Lawrence. The classic shape Leon and the new shape Leon in the same class. And this is the beauty of time attack, is age is just a number, truly. Old and new is just a cradle snatching ain't a thing when it comes to time attack. Everything goes, whether it's brand new or whether it's an ancient 50-year-old chassis. Everything is cool, everything is fair game. And that's why I love time attack. We've got two Honda Integra Type Rs here as well. We've got the cars of Sean Amara and James Dover, both in Delano-built racing machines, a DC2 and a DC5 shape Integra. Here we go, Mike Butler then in that BMW M3 E92 shape, the two-door. We also have an F80 chassis, Natalie Brooks driven BMW M3 of Foster. That did seem to be running on low boost. Not only was it on low boost at Brands Hatch, it was actually only on one turbo from what I understand. It was having issues with the other one. So perhaps this time around we'll be able to see Natalie Brooks really put down the hammer in that faster BMW M3. Meanwhile, Jonathan Ellsworth in the Club 2-wheel drive Caterham Supersport. There he goes, hot on the heels of David Dyson in that 911 GT3. There we go, finally a dry day for Jonathan Ellsworth, who was having to contend with a bit of the occasional rain shower the other times he's been out, which I can imagine is not hugely fun in a little caterum like that. There you go, so David Dyson then just yielding that road space to Jonathan Ellsworth, makes his way around him. And you can just see on your screens how bumpy this track is. There we go, through the chicane he comes, and now into Knickerbrook and then Clay Hill. Up the hill he goes. Let's perhaps follow. There we go, Jonathan Ellsworth then coming through Water Tower. And now into Druids he goes. You can just see how much it's moving around there. So here now, Warwick Bridge is, he really needs some big cojones to get through here. It's a real test of your commitment, this circuit generally. If you can keep your foot down and you have that bottle to go with it, you can be very fast around here. But it's, if you get that wrong and you don't thread the needle through these fast flowing corners correctly, you are gonna be in trouble. Let's take a look at our running order then, bearing in mind, again, this is only practice. There are no points awarded for this, but Arturo Suxurius then fastest of all so far with a 135.6, fastest overall, fastest in club four-wheel drive. Jonathan Ellsworth, second fastest, 0.3 of a seconds behind Uxurius in the Caterham Supersport F190. Jonathan Ellsworth there, second fastest overall. You can see the two Honda Integras on your screen. Andy Stockton in the Vauxhall Astra van. Real time attack icon, having taken a little bit of time out lately, but he is back today. We saw a few familiar faces there with him running the car. I think I saw James Allen a little bit earlier on, himself also ex-time attack in the Ford Focus RS. And today I think I saw him out there supporting Andy Stockton's entry. So there you go, Andy Stockton just ahead of that DC5 shape Honda Integra Delano built number 400 machine with those GT Racing Le Mans style yellow tinted headlights, just to prevent that blare. Let's not bring politics into this. To prevent that glare, if you were, the whole yellow headlight thing, from what I understand, stems from night racing when you're doing proper endurance stuff day and night. And that yellow tint just cuts down on the glare to cars ahead of you. So you can see then that James Dover there just running that GT-inspired look on his car, this turbocharged K20, trying to make his way around Andy Stockton, who a little bit of an awkward kind of, is like when you're walking towards someone and you both step in the same direction to walk around each other, and then it just happens a few times. I think something like that happened where you could just see Andy Stockton yields to one direction, just as James Dover tried to move in that same direction. So a little bit awkward there. Nonetheless, everyone got out unscathed. Let's have a look at the other Honda Integra then, Sean O'Mara's car, the DC2 chassis, which was sold in the UK, unlike the DC5. Couldn't quite tell on the image just there. It was a little bit exposed white in the sunshine. I couldn't see if that was a UK or an import front end. But Sean O'Mara there in the other Honda Integra. Yeah, so I don't think, looking at that, it's got the double headlight, hasn't it? Unlike the Japanese single rectangular headlight. So there you go. Natalie Brooks then in the faster BMW M3, now hopefully running without any technical gremlins, being able to put down that power. Jonathan Ellsworth comes across the line. Let's see where he is on our timing screens. Jonathan Ellsworth then actually sliding down the rankings. David Dyson fastest of all in the Porsche 911 GT3, having set a lap time of 132.8. Just ahead of Sam Pickering in his DIY carbon fiber Super Impreza Type RA with a 135.5. Second fastest overall, first fastest in club four-wheel drive. Then we have Arturo Suxurius in the other super impressive Club 4-wheel drive. Oh, there we go. He's just been displaced by Johnny Fletcher, who's leapfrogged a whole 7 positions to go 3rd fastest overall. 2nd fastest in Club 2-wheel drive has Johnny Fletcher. His nearest in-class competitor being David Dyson in the Porsche 911 GT3. So Johnny Fletcher is going to be very happy with himself so far. We have 7 minutes of this session remaining, so everything could still change. On your screens then, the number 964 machine of Chrissy Martin, the GR Performance Subaru Impreza GC8, and I believe I might have an interview for you guys. Susie, what have you got for us?
Yeah, I'm down here. Hi, I'm down here with Luke Clayton.
Hello.
So, Luke, do you want to just give us a quick introduction to who you are and what your involvement with Time Attack is?
So we're a series sponsor. We have been since 2017 actually, and then in 2018 we just started to help the series out a little bit with the live stream. So we did like a little test run at Brands as like a one-off, and then it's just sort of developed from there really. Sort of hence why we're talking now.
But you're not used to be driving yourself, right?
Yeah. But I do enjoy being this side. It's sorry, I'll wait for that. I'd say it makes me a little bit more anxious, like being this side. But it is, yeah, it's really enjoyable. So we're running the M3 that you drove a couple of years ago, no, it's great. We just like being out doing cool car stuff. So.
And can you tell us a bit of the story about the M3 and with like how Natalie's driving this year?
Yeah, so we just thought we wanted to get like Natalie into like a real structured situation, just make sure that she's got the right team around her. We can make sure that she's got proper coaching and that sort of thing, and then just like really build a skill set up through the year. So we've done like a little bit of work to the car. Sorry. Okay, so we did quite a lot of development work on the car, a lot of work on the chassis. So when you drove it back in 2019, it was basically just suspension brakes and a remap. Like that was pretty much it. But we spent a lot of time like getting the chassis set up right, and we've gone for a little bit more power, nothing crazy. But the main thing is just to get her out, doing all the stuff like going through the data properly, and just building her skills up, like I said, throughout the season. And then we'll take a call on what to do next year, really. But that was the sort of plan, just to get her in that structured situation, and just keep developing it throughout the year.
And obviously, you were driving the Bentley before as well. Not here. It's not around this year.
No. Like hands down, scariest thing I've ever done. But it was. I've never driven like a proper race car before that, so it was a lot of learning. Like keep your mouth shut, just do as you're told. And it was great. It was a lot of fun. We made like a lot of really good friends that season. And obviously the car's out in the US at the moment, so it's just Pikes Peak and. Yeah, we're probably looking to go back next year. We've got a bit of unfinished business there, but yeah, people like ask me like, when are you going to drive the car again? I'm like, literally never. Like, it is absolutely terrifying just to be around it now. But it's a completely different car now. But yeah, just to be part of that whole project is incredible, and that really came from like running the car in Time Attack. Bentley saw that we were doing something a little bit different, and they obviously kind of like what we did. Just a little bit out there, and now we're part of a really incredible project. So we're just massively grateful for it. Really, really grateful.
Brilliant. Thanks, Luke. Thanks so much for everything you've done for the series. Thanks for talking to us.
See you soon.
Thanks, guys. Well, if you're wondering what that siren is, that isn't like Noddy driving past or something. So if you've been around circuits a lot, you might know that basically whenever a car enters the pit lane, bearing in mind, even though the pit lane has a speed limit, it's still a car traveling at 30, 40 miles an hour. I can't remember what the speed limit is here. So nonetheless, that is quite a hazard still. And people are kind of running around with their tools, not really looking around, perhaps with as much awareness as they should. So the siren when a car enters the pit lane, or a whistle or anything, the noise when a car enters the pit lane is there just to warn people that, by the way, a car has just entered the pit lane at speed. So just have your wits about you. And we saw during Susie's interview there with Luke Clayton of Faster, quite a few cars were coming into the pit lane, throwing off that siren every few minutes, and there you go. So there were 3 participants in that interview, really. Susie, Luke, and the siren wanted to chip in as well with its opinions. Anyway, you also saw Neil Greenland there off the track at Island, And again, you know, this is something that we've talked about. We've seen this happen a few times. Oh my goodness, Ross Walker there kicking up dust as he takes a generous serving of curb coming through Clay Hill. Very bold there of Ross Walker. Again, this is a circuit that really rewards having that bottle. I think more so than other circuits is just keeping your foot down and having that confidence that you can place the car where it needs to be to thread together these fast flowing corners, you know, undulating, grab that curb, don't unsettle the car. You just need that confidence because you're coming through a corner at high speed, going up and down over these bumps, and you lift off your gas, you upset the balance of the car, and you're coming off. So this is the circuit that really rewards having that bottle, and you can see Ross Walker there having barrels, not just bottles, as he comes through that fast section. Johnny Fletcher then, so we were just talking about island. Yep, so the island bends, that hairpin there is a big braking zone where you are also going downhill and over bumps. So it's really tricky to get that braking zone right. You might either hit the brakes at the wrong point, go over those bumps, your braking wheels unload, and in fact no braking actually happens, or you brake too much with that downhill gravity pushing the front end of your car just forwards and forwards and forwards, and you have the opposite problem where your fronts bite too much and your rears just aren't in touch with the ground, and you just fall off the corner as well. So islands there, a really difficult one to get right. We saw Neil Greenland coming off. We've seen a few other guys. Tim Bedford had to take the escape route a little bit earlier on, I think this session, in the previous classes. So there you go. Arturus Luxurious then just makes a move past Johnny Fletcher, as it looks like you can see the little lake, the pond there in the distance. Arturus Luxurious then. Let's see how he manages to break into Island Bend. Never mind, Johnny Fletcher there as well. Keeping things clean and tidy then from the pair. You can see Arturus Luxurious making a clean getaway just in the far end of your screens. Let's have a look at the running order then, with 10 seconds remaining before the checkered flag comes out. David Dyson, fastest of all with 132.8, ahead of Johnny Fletcher with a 134.9. 2 seconds between them. So David Dyson then with a real statement. 2 seconds clear of anybody else. David Dyson in that Porsche 911 GT3 really coming into his own here at Oulton Park, in a circuit that perhaps suits its natural tendencies more so than, say, Cadwell Park or Brands Hatch Indy, where you can just really have that confidence in your chassis, have that confidence in the power of your car as well, and just manage to really carry a lot of speed through that fast section. So I'd imagine we're going to see David Dyson remain competitive throughout this session. Jonathan Ellsworth, third fastest in the Caterham Supersport F190 with 135.5, ahead of Mike Butler in the BMW M3. Wow, so our first 4 fastest cars are all Club 2-wheel drive. So Club 2-wheel drive, very quick indeed. And we have Mike Butler then, 4th fastest with a, where is he? With a 135.4. You have Sam Pickering leading Club 4-wheel drive, 5th fastest overall with a 135.5. By the way, for those of you watching at home, go into your search engine of choice, look up TSL timing, and you can have all of the data that I have right at your fingertips. If you're keen on following a particular driver, you want to look at the sector times, the gaps, the speed traps, all that good stuff. TSL, Tango Sierra Lima timing, and you can have all the information that I do here if you just want to follow especially closely, because there's only so much I can convey. There we go. Mike Butler then going a little bit slowly, having just gone 4th fastest of all. Probably making the most of that cool down lap just to try to cool everything off in that E92 chassis BMW M3. See, there he goes, indicating off into the pit lane. Looks like most of the cars are off the track now in preparation for our pro cars to head out, so I will bring you that in just a moment. There we go. There's the results on your screen. Top 10 in that session just now. While we've got Jonathan Ellsworth on the subject of that, he very helpfully sent in some information for us. And let's just take a look at that car of his then, Caterham Supersport. This is a 1,600cc Ford Sigma engine rebuilt by Premier Power Race and Performance Engines, now producing, hold on to your seats, ladies and gents, 198 BHPs, 198 BGPs, fully forged with forged pistons, steel rods, port and polished heads, upgraded valves, valve springs, etc. And of course, running those saucy ITBs, individual throttle baudet with carbon airbox and an increased rev limit to 8,000 RPMs, weighing 535 kilograms with all fluids and half a tank of fuel, giving us around 377 brake horsepower per ton. So of course it's no secret then that that is a very fast car anywhere it goes, even Oulton Park. Jonathan Ellsworth there steering it exceptionally well. That little that little bathtub on wheels with 198 horsepower, 500 kilos, 500 and a bit. You know, let's just, for the sake of sensationalism, let's say it's 500 kilos. Very fast entry indeed. Jonathan Ellsworth at the wheel of that Caterham Supersport, finally getting a chance to drive in the dry, not getting drowned as he's trying to set a fast lap time. There we go then, the pro cars out on track. Darren Spooner at the front of the queue, and just behind him, Ben Robinson, and then Phil Reed, Roman Grendel, Jeff Kershaw, and then the number 68 machine of Paul Wright in the Subaru Impreza P1. Very rare machine indeed. Everyone then filing out onto the track, ready to throw down some fast laps. Let's rein that in for a second. Here we go. Darren Spooner then just setting. You can see, if you're following on the TSL timing screens, you can see that these numbers are now beginning to populate into the spreadsheet. Darren Spooner then having set the fastest sector, fastest speed trap 1 at 88.3 miles per hour. And you can see Ben Robinson yielding to the car of Phil Reed. You can see what a ginormous car that is. The Nissan GTR is a huge car at the best of times. This is this is the extra wide, extra long, extra beefy version. And you could see, compared to the Noble, which the Noble isn't a small car either, it's just in a different league, this Nissan GTR. Absolutely phenomenally quick car, and a phenomenally big car as well. All that aero and all of that width to house those super chunky, super sticky tires. Phil Reed driving a very fast, very wide car indeed. Here we go then, Darren Spooner just trying to keep up in his Peugeot-powered Peugeot 205. I did make a mistake in previous rounds thinking that was the K20 powered machine. The K20 machine is actually Andy York's. So Darren Spooner is still running that Peugeot power plant, albeit, of course, heavily breathed on by Spooks Motorsports, who've had a Time Attack presence for longer than I can remember, and longer than I've been in Time Attack. Spooks Motorsport absolutely know their stuff. They know how to build a very quick Peugeot indeed. Darren Spooner then, one of the masterminds behind that, piloting that 205 around here at blistering pace, currently going fastest of all, bearing in mind people have only really done outlaps and stuff like that. But, you know, let's give Darren Spooner some credit while he's up at the top of the leaderboard. Just behind him then, Ben Robinson in that Noble M12. Let's see, so with the outlaps now done, we're going to see these drivers putting in their first flying laps. And it looks like we have an interview. Susie, who have you got for us?
I'm down here in the pits with Mike Humes. So Mike, can you tell us, what's your car? You're running in Pocket Rocket, I believe.
Yep, so I'm in a Clio 182. It's just short of 200 brake horsepower. It's nothing fantastic.
It's my first time at Oulton Park ever.
So what kind of learning experience has this been?
It's fast. Like I said to you before, it's like Cadwell, but it's more demanding, I think. In terms of heat, it's hot. So 2.5, 3 laps, tyres are done. So quick cool down lap. But then you see someone that's in a class against you, or in your class, and then you want to try and chase after them. So it's hard. You want to cool down, but you can't.
So how are you managing the tyres then, if they're only good for like a couple of laps?
Well, all you can do really is back off, let the tyres cool down. Your brakes obviously radiate a lot of heat as well, so that heats up your wheel and your tyre. So all you can do really, slow down for maybe a lap, 2 at the most, then go again. But it's hard because I keep seeing people I want to chase, so whoever's in front, I want to chase them. So,
so you're getting a bit of the red mist descending then?
Yeah, it is, honestly. There's a couple of guys who are fast here today. One's in the Saxo, obviously take our Civic. They're just unreal. They come past you as if you stood still. So if I can get, first time was a 145. I just done a 142. So I'll see if I can get to 140. That's my goal today. First time here, we'll just have a go. So.
Okay, well, brilliant. Thanks for talking to us today. Good luck out there for the rest of the day.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks, Susie. Thanks, Michael. As you can see, meanwhile, we've had a situation develop. We have a red flag out, the number 59 machine of Andy Hughes, the X-Shift Super Impreza, which I believe was having some difficulties earlier on in the day, stopped out on track right in the braking zone for Island, which we've already seen. If there's any corner where people are falling off, it's Island. And of course, you don't want a car parked exactly where we've seen so many people get it wrong. That is just an accident waiting to happen. You could have called that instantly. Red flag is out. That cannot remain there because that is a corner guaranteed where everyone is falling off the track and you do not want a car parked right there. So red flag, first red flag of the day. I got to say, we've done pretty well so far. We haven't had any red flags in Time Attack, which is, you know, pretty unusual. But here we go, we've got a red flag. And it's interesting, you know, going back to what Michael Hume was just saying there, it's his first time driving Oulton Park, and this is something I've touched on as well. When Susie asked him what his first impression of Oulton Park was, all he could say was, it's fast. You know, Oulton Park is just so intimidatingly fast because a big chunk of the lap, you are just going flat out, foot pinned, doing big speeds, and just trying to ride these bumps, keep everything together, and just really try to flick it and thread this needle through these fast flowing corners. It's really like being on a roller coaster, but a really quick roller coaster. And of course, if you do fall off the track, which is very possible, then it's like your roller coaster's gone off the rails, which is also not good. So Oulton Park is really quite intimidatingly fast, more so than other tracks, perhaps a little bit like Castle Combe as well, where, you know, it's fast, you've got to keep your foot pinned, there aren't really any slow sections, and you spend a big chunk of the lap going absolutely hell for leather and just trying to not bin it at 120 miles an hour plus. So of course, your first impression you get from here is you think, I have to go how fast? And which is, you know, that's part of the challenge of Oulton Park. But I feel like more than many other circuits, especially, you know, the trees create that illusion that you're just in this super narrow tunnel. There's not really much runoff to speak of, and you're carrying so much speed with you everywhere that this is a real challenge to drive. And the speed at which you're meant to drive this track really do strike you. We can see just some people there on the hillside enjoying the views. And looking in the pit lane, here you go, you can see the camera in the pit lane now. You can see that cars are actually lining up. So it looks like we're going to get the session resumed. There are 7 minutes on the clock. So of course there's a big chunk of this session left. Hopefully they'll be able to clear the stricken car of Andy Hughes pretty quickly. and then we can get this session back underway. Excuse me while I move a chair, I'm going to sit down. There we go. Oh, so the speed limit in the pit lane, we were just discussing that, is I think it's 60 kilometers an hour. So that's around 40 miles an hour, which is what I was saying. It was, not to blow my own horn, but 40 miles an hour. When you've been doing a day out on track, you come into the pit lane, 40 miles an hour feels incredibly slow. But of course, that having people running around in a pit lane and cars doing 40 miles an hour is, you can see the need for that siren or whistle or some kind of signal just to notify people, to warn people that there's a car driving around at 40 miles an hour that's just entered the pit lane. Just because as you're running around with your tools, otherwise occupied, having that extra little signal is quite helpful. That being said, the pit lane is wide. You can get multiple cars abreast in the pit lane, so there's loads of room, which is why you can do that kind of speed through there. But when you're behind the wheel of a car, having just been smashing out some hopefully pretty quick laps, having to slow down to 40 miles an hour feels like you're walking. It's actually quite striking. And you can see this is why so many people speed in the pit lane, because it just feels not in time attack, but generally, it is a done thing. People do speed in the pit lane, and you think, come on, how difficult can it be? Just slow down, But actually, like psychologically, your brain has already accommodated that stimulus of just traveling really fast, and slowing down so much to 40 miles an hour in such a wide space just doesn't feel natural, and so your brain just doesn't want to do that. You've really got to convince yourself that 40 miles an hour is the speed limit. Some of these cars, perhaps Phil Reed's machine even at the front of the queue, that Nismo GT3, might even have a pit lane speed limiter, so that you don't have to think about that. You dive into the pit lane, you press that button, and the car just sorts itself out and slows down to the speed limit, which is pretty handy. Those of you who drive on sims know that, especially on the more serious sims where you drive yourself in the pit lane, those pit lane speed limits are policed as well. And having that pit lane speed limiter is quite handy too. Of course, there's less of a consequence if you're speeding in the pit lane on a sim, because who cares really? It's all pretty inconsequential. But in real life, there are people running around and stuff, so you've got to make sure to slow down to the prescribed 40 miles an hour. Andy Hughes' car then just being loaded up onto that low loader. Hopefully we'll be able to get that cleared up pretty shortly. You can see some fire marshals there as well. Low cars like this are often pretty tricky to recover, and it's interesting to see where that winch is attached to is kind of underneath the headlight, underneath the bonnet around the headlight area. So I'm kind of interested to see what that's hooked onto. Generally speaking, track cars need to have a clearly marked and very visible towing point on the front and the rear of the car, but I think in Pro Extreme, which Andy Hughes is in, I think it's more of an open rule book in case of anything goes. But of course you do need a towing point, but I think it might not need to be in one of the conventional locations. So there you go. So it's hooked onto the chassis somehow otherwise. There you go. So that's now loaded up. You can see it's being strapped down. Luckily, no need for that fire extinguisher. So that's now all being lifted up. Hopefully we'll be able to get the session resumed for you shortly. Nice pit lane shot for you there. And you can just see, Michael Hume mentioned this. It is hot today. It's hot and it's fast. And yeah, the sun sure is cooking right now. And I think these cars, a lot of them don't have air conditioning. And they are not really meant to be stood still. And in fact, I think Susie is speaking to one of our drivers or crew members. What have you got for us, Susie?
I'm down here with Chris Atkins. So Chris, this is your car, so can you tell us a little bit about it, what class you're running in?
Yeah, we bought it last year for the intentions of doing some rounds of time attack. So we've jumped up from Clubman, which we've run in previously, to Club two-wheel drive. Basically got upgraded turbo, forged engine, gripper diff. It's basically a race car that has got number plates that we can drive on the road. So,
but it's a little bit of a different car. You've driven before in Time Attack in a different car.
Yeah, we used to run a Clio 200. We did a couple of 1-8 wonders in 2016, did a full season in 2017, then I did 1 or 2 in 2018. Then we sold that, bought them again, did a couple of rounds in Clubman again in that, and then sold that because I had a baby. And then bought this for play around in now, and we will settle back down.
So how does the Megane compare to the Clio?
Oh, it's chalk and cheese, chalk and cheese. Like, you can... Clio's just underpowered, you've just got to keep winding its neck all the time, whereas this is a bit more easier to drive in a sense, because you've got more power. So if you do cock up somewhere, you can get yourself out of it and use the power of the car to bring you around.
And is it a little bit different to drive on track? With you said you were driving in club. Is it a little bit different as well?
Totally different. In Clubman, it seems like you've got quite a lot of time. Well, from previous, but jumping up into club, the first session was a bit like eyes in the back of your head. You think you've got space, and next minute there was 2 or 3 cars behind you. So, but we got used to it in that one. We just got our heads down and got on with it.
And how's it been out in the heat as well? Because it's absolutely sweltering here today.
Hot, very hot. Obviously gets really hot in there as well, but just got to manage the situation. I mean, we've got the ducting, which blows cold air at us, so it keeps us cool to a degree, but yeah.
And you got your shorts on, so it's all fine?
Yeah, take the race suit off, cool down and go again.
Okay, so what are you hoping for from this afternoon? Is it just getting used to the car, or?
Basically, we know we're not going to do anything in the class competitively. There's a lot of quick cars out, so we've set a target in our own head. We're going to try and knock 4 seconds off the time that we set previously in the old Megane. This is only the 3rd time I've actually drove the car. So we did track day at Donington, the track day here last month, and then we jumped in the deep end and gone for it. Because if we didn't do it now, it would have been another 12 months, and with COVID going on, you don't know if we're going to get another chance here, you don't know. So
you're really learning on the job then today?
Well, yeah, messy. Well, we've just come in, we're changing some of the suspension settings to just try and improve the car, but we'll see if it's right when we go back out next time.
Okay, brilliant. Well, good luck out there. Hopefully don't get too hot out there, and have a good rest of the day.
Yeah, thank you very much. Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks, Susie. Thanks, Chris. Interesting to hear that comparison between the Renault Sport Clio and the Renault Sport Megane, because these are 2 of the most sought after, most respected track day cars. For me, it's kind of it's similar to a front-wheel drive Lotus Elise in terms of, you know, you look at the spec of an Elise on paper and you think, okay, yeah, big deal, cool. But actually you see an Elise doing its thing on the track, and it's so much more than the sum of its parts, you know. And Renault Sport also have that down to an absolute art in terms of, yeah, they take some components that exist and they make a car, and you look at it on paper and you think, all right. And then you actually try one and you drive it on track and you think, holy moly, this is just so pure and so engaging. And I think Renault Sport, especially in you know, the noughties and the 2010s, really made some incredible drivers' machines. And interesting there to see that comparison between the highly strung, naturally aspirated Renault Sport Clio, little tiny car, all about conserving your momentum. And once that's gone, you know, it's going to take you a little while to get back up to speed. And the easier going Renault Sport Megane, no less popular and no less respectable, but it's just a very different, you know, like Chris himself said, chalk and cheese, where, you know, you've got that torque, you've got that power. It's a bigger car as well. You've got that forced induction. It's a very different kind of, there we go. Oh dear, I did say this would happen. We've got a car backwards coming into Island Bend. And this is the Pro Extreme car of Paul Doyle, the BC Racing Subaru Impreza. You can see that fan whirring on the back of that. And again, given the frequency with which cars fall off at Island Bend, I do wonder if this means we'll have another red flag. Let's see how this goes. Meanwhile, here's the number 22 machine of Matt Newing, the JDS Sport Mitsubishi Evo 7. currently running 4th overall, 3rd fastest in Pro 4-wheel drive. The fastest of all being then Phil Reed in the Nissan Nismo GTR GT3 with a 126.4. Very, very fast indeed. Let's see what happens coming into Islands then. Is the car of Paul Doyle? Yep, that's still there. Yellow flags, double yellow flags. So perhaps marshals have decided that we can get by without calling it a red flag. We're going to have a double waved yellow to say, really guys, really, really, really slow down is what the wave double yellow means, just to avoid anyone else falling off at Island, as drivers are wont to do. Very tricky braking zone. Of course, if you're not running the Islands configuration, then that challenge isn't there. You blitz straight past that hairpin and just carry on into the long right-hander at Shell Oil's corner. But today we're running the Island layout, which has this unique added challenge of that big downhill bumpy braking zone into Island bends. There we go, Phil Reed then, fastest of all in this session. Checkered flag is out. Phil Reed then with a 125.9 ahead of Gary Hayward in the AP Tuning Mitsubishi Evo 7, the number 100 car, fastest in Pro 4-wheel drive. Then we have Matt Newing with a 130.9, Andrew Barber with 131.3, Ben Robinson with a 133.5, so fastest in Club Pro 2-wheel drive, so making true to his promise earlier on that he is here to win. Bearing in mind this is only warm-up, it doesn't actually, it's only practice, doesn't score you any points, but good to know. Club Pro 2-wheel drive then, second fastest Darren Spooner, 6th fastest overall with 134.0. Chris Cherry in the Mitsubishi Evo 5, 7th fastest overall, 1st fastest in Club Pro 4-wheel drive. Just taking a look at what's happening on track there. See the recovery operation as well and truly underway. Then we have Paul Doyle in the Subaru Impreza, the number 245 machine. Nope, he's just 4.5. Well, 2.45. Anyway, don't worry about it. Let me just amend my entry list. Paul Doyle is now 2.45. So there we go. Paul Doyle, who was stopped out on track, now being recovered. Actually, I can see the recovery vehicle is now just making their way over. Brent Simpson, 9th fastest overall, 3rd fastest in Club Pro 2-wheel drive with 136.2. Steve Reed, 10th fastest overall with the Mitsubishi Evo 8, 4th fastest in Pro 4-wheel drive. Colin Dorward then 11th. Then in 12th, we have the machine of Bradley John, the Mitsubishi Evo 9. Stuart Sims. Then we have the number 927 machine of Gary Plant, the GR Performance Mitsubishi Evo 5. 15th overall and 4th fastest in class is Roman Grandel with a 147.666. There you go, so the times there on your screen, that's your Club Pro 2-wheel drive ranking. You have Steve Henson in the Porsche 996 GT3 Cup, Paul Wright in the Subaru Impreza P1, Jeff Kershaw in the Ford Focus. Then we have the number 81 machine of Ian Pittman, the Subaru Impreza Type R. And then, last but not least, in 20th and 3rd fastest in Extreme, is the number 59 machine of Andy Hughes, the Subaru Impreza that we saw also stricken on track earlier now. And that rounds up our time attack practice. We're gonna now move on to some other things. Those of you following us here on the live stream, time attack qualifying will be back. It's scheduled to kick off at actually 2-ish or so, maybe 2:15, something like that. So yes, absolutely do come back. I mean, let's stick to the schedule. On the schedule, time attack qualifying kicks off at 2:05. So we'll see you there for that. And yeah, meanwhile, have a delicious lunch, bon appetit, and we'll catch you on the other side at 2:05.